Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking some Bears, some Blackhawks, some Cubs, and some Sox. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You could see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. So head on over to icehogs.com, get a Father's Day gift for all the fathers in your life, because that's coming up, and tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, how are you doing in another gloomy week of weather and Chicago baseball?
Getting numb to the baseball, but otherwise doing pretty good. Cannot complain.
Where do you want to start today?
I guess we can start with baseball. Get it out of the way. It sounds like you ate something bad and you're regretting it.
I did. I ate a Cubs game.
That's not good for your intestines.
It is not. It's not good for my intestines or my soul. You just see everybody just moaning on the couch with the game on, like you're clenching your stomach, you're like, what's going on? You point to the TV and the game is on marquee. Everyone's like, oh my God, did you eat bad clams? Worse, the Cubs game.
Bad clams. They might as well be bad clams.
That's my new saying. It's the Cubs are playing like bad clams.
Yeah, well, you ain't wrong.
Yeah, it's I mean, they at least won a game this week. But I this team is so flawed. Like, it's either the pitching is just falls apart, or the hitters forget to how to hit a baseball. The lineup doesn't make sense most nights. There's a bunch of guys that probably should get sent down, but we don't have enough guys that are hitting to be up to make it work.
Nope.
They made the announcement, we're going to send down Mastroboni and bring up Madrigal. And all I could think of is Pam Beasley, from The Office, being like, they're the same thing.
Yeah, and you know what, too? The thing is I thought, okay, at least with Madrigal, you get some contact. He hasn't even been, everybody, hitting is contagious, and everybody is chasing that slider down and away and expanding the zone and striking out. Even Madrigal is striking out now. He's not supposed to strike out. Him and Horner, they're
Strikeouts
striking
are
out.
contagious, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's contagious when it's good. It's contagious when it's bad. And sometimes you pass on good wisdom. Sometimes you pass around bad clams. And they're eating some bad clams in that freaking dugout, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it is brutal.
And they have no power. None. They have so little pop. The only power you saw this week was basically in the one really fun game, the near Kyle Hendricks no-hitter, when Mervis and Morel homered. Otherwise, they haven't been slugging the ball at all. Ian Happ's power is completely diminished. Completely diminished. And
Wisdom's got power, but he can't hit the baseball.
He can't. He's just flat out not hitting the baseball at all. Not at all.
Yeah, he needs to put out the rum for Joe Boo, because he can't hit the curveball.
No, he can't. He can't. I mean, I don't know what else to do at this point. And once again, today, just another great example. I couldn't even keep track of what they were for for in runners in scoring position, but early on, you had a chance to take the lead and establish yourself in this game. And you go out there and, you waste scoring chances, and then things just absolutely fall apart. And it's amazing how little they've done with runners in scoring position over the past month. I mean, it's like when they get guys on, you just expect them to strand those runners with bad strikeouts, weak pop-ups, weak grounders. They don't drive in runners, and you can't even hit fly balls in certain situations. This lineup is it's been so feeble. And one thing that is interesting is you look at the numbers of pitches per at bat, they're leading baseball. They see more pitches than anybody. So part of the problem, I think, is, frankly, I think guys like Suzuki and Happ, they look to take the walk too much. And listen, I'm not saying that taking a walk is always a bad thing, but there's a point where they get so locked into just trying to get on than trying to drive the run in. And I know we can play the whole money ball he gets on base game, but there are times when you have to hit the ball. When the runners are on, you have to drive them in. You have to hit the ball. And when you look to walk too much, how many times have we seen them take strike 3 right on the edge because they were looking to walk?
Yep. And with how fast the game has been moving, I honestly feel like whenever a team starts taking too many pitches, anything that's close, the umps are just strike, just to move the game along.
Yeah, I mean, they're calling those pitches on the edge for the most part. The only time I could really excuse the Cubs was, you remember that one game in San Diego when Phil Cuzzi was calling pitches like a complete foot out of the strike zone strikes against the Cubs?
Was that when Coomer lost his mind? As much as Coomer loses his mind?
I wasn't listening on the radio, but David Ross got ejected, and I could tell you that Rick Sutcliffe on TV was getting pretty pissed. I could imagine Coom was not happy either.
Yeah, one of the games this week, Coomer was real upset, and he still kept it Coomer, but he was like, that was just a flat out bad call. That was just a bad call.
I'm going to guess who was that game, because like the ump scorecard after that game was ridiculous. And I mean, watching it on TV was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. And everyone was like, what the hell is this? So that's one area I don't blame the Cubs, but there were plenty of other situations where you got to swing the bat. You got to try to drive the run in. And, it's you have that. And, like you said, there are some guys right now that are just flat out not hitting. And it seems like everybody's in a slump. Dansby Swanson's in a slump. Ian Happ's in a slump. Nico Horner's in a slump. And Seiya Suzuki, up to the last few games, was in a slump. His last few games, he hit well, and all of a sudden, back-to-back games, he's not playing. And they're calling it a minor thing, but what happens with the Cubs? There's a little injury. They say it's nothing serious. All of a sudden, they're not playing for a few days. Next thing, you're on the 15-day IL.
That's what has me worried about Justin Steele.
Yep.
I thought the worst, and they were like, "Oh no, it's okay. We're going to be cautious with this." And I'm like, "All right, when are they just going to be like, we're being cautious with it, Tommy John?"
Yeah. Look at Cody Bellinger. How long ago was that injury? Was that like a month ago at this point?
It's getting up there now. He's got to be almost ready to become back.
You hope, because you hope he could come back and hit like the Bellinger he was hitting, because it is dearly missed, because he was hitting very, very well, and he was hitting for some power, and Lord knows the Cubs need it.
I mean, honestly, is when he left, the Cubs just kind of fell apart.
I mean, they already were kind of falling apart, but their offense went from frustrating to just feeble. Just feeble. And the weird part is this is like a curse, because we saw the same thing with, the last group of players. Most of those players have moved on. We have new players, and the same things are happening. And it's, 52 hitting coaches ago, like what the hell is happening? The only thing you could say about the last regime is that at least they had pop in those bats.
Facts. Like,
like Jock Peterson hit a ball today that I think went as far as every combined ball in play from the Cubs all series.
Yeah, so it's just so frustrating. And then we're not getting the level of pitching that we want. Wisniewski to the last two starts has not been good.
Well, I'll say this. I think outside Wisniewski, the rotation's been pretty good.
I mean, Tyone didn't have a very good game against the Angels.
Okay, Tyone's been meh. I don't think he was horrible, but he wasn't great. I mean, but you got to give it to Stroman and Hendricks recently.
Yeah, I mean, Hendricks got that loss against the Padres, but it wasn't a bad game. It wasn't a great game. It wasn't a bad game. His last start was really good.
Yeah.
Stroman's been good. Smiley got the loss, but I mean, he pitched well enough to win.
Yeah, I mean, Smiley's been solid. I wouldn't say maybe spectacular is obviously way too high, but he's been solid enough. And you pair that with the fact that you have two good relievers right now, just two, because the rest of the pitching staff, oh man, in that bullpen, outside of Alzolay and Leiter, I mean, it is horrific. I mean, Assad has been up and down, but he got bombed today. Estrada has just gotten shelled. He only throws fastballs now. Brandon Hughes just has not been effective. It's the only thing I could say is at least Michael Fulmer in his last few appearances in kind of this mop-up / duty where you're either way up or way down has been okay, but that's only in certain situations. I mean, I looked at the Cubs pitching staff that pitched today, and then just the ERAs, you're like, holy cow, this is horrific. And something is broken with Wisniewski because he wasn't throwing very hard and everything was just hanging. It was not looking good at all.
Yeah, he has not looked good. And, you can't, I mean, I guess you could send him down, but who's going to take that spot in the rotation?
You can until Steele comes back.
Unless you're really going to gamble on somebody coming up from AAA.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You're not going to rush your pitching prospects yet. You're legit ones.
It's a little bit brutal.
Yeah.
And to top it off, you have Stroman coming out and saying that the Cubs aren't willing to entertain giving him an extension.
I'm going to wait and see how that one plays out.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. He's got the player option for next year. So he's not coming back on a player option, 1 year player option. That's just not happening. So it's either the Cubs extend him, or if you can't get the extension done, you got to trade him, right?
Right. And here's the thing. Here's the balancing act. It's not like he's 25 or 26, 27, 28. He is 32 now?
That's, yeah. And I mean, I get it. I get the reason to be hesitant because, he's older, but, you can't, he's pitching great. You can't just let every good pitcher walk.
No. And here's the other thing too is, listen, if you're going to trade him away, that means you have another spot to fill next year. And, you could say, well, our pitching is deep in the organization, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. Caleb Killian was supposed to be an option, right? Look how that's turned out. I'm not giving up on Wisniewski, but this has not gone as I had hoped so far. I am growing a little more concerned about if the Cubs really know what they're doing when it comes to developing these guys. Steele is the only successful one I could really think of in recent years. Remember when Keegan Thompson had potential? He's probably not even part of the plans now.
Right.
Are we going to trust them to develop guys when the track record doesn't really look that good in terms of starters? You say pitch lab this, pitch lab that. What the fuck has it done for you?
You can't, when developing pitching is hard. When you've got a pitcher, you gotta pay him. You gotta pay him.
Yeah. And yeah.
It's like, it looks like you've got a good thing with Steele. You've got, but you've got him on the cheap. You've got a decent amount of money tied up in Tyone, but Hendricks's contract comes off the books. Pay the guy the money. You got him for, it was a good contract, but you got him for basically a 2-year deal. And if you were in the beginning of a rebuild, okay, I get it. You got to trade him, move on. But you're supposed to be in the beginning of you're supposed to be in that beginning of that window where you're starting to compete. And if you tell your best pitcher, we're not going to give you an extension, we're not even going to answer your agent when he calls, then you're not serious. You're not serious.
There's a lot of reasons you can look at this organization right now and ask them where is this serious? Plenty of places. Plenty of places. Look at the lineups every day. You thought you were going to compete with that? This sucks. And I don't care how bad this division is. Look at the Reds. Wouldn't you rather be them right now? I am terrified of Ellie De La Cruz. Terrified of him. That is a young upcoming team. A legit young upcoming team.
The only thing that gives me any deal of hope is that the Reds can't pay nobody. So once they come contract due, they'll start going to the Yankees.
Well, that's the thing. It might not be a very long window there, but the next few years, they're going to be difficult. That team can score. Look what they did to you at Wrigley Field. And now you have Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, what if they Joey Votto him and lock him up for long term?
It's possible.
I am terrified of that guy. You know how he's going to absolutely relentlessly murder the Cubs. That Kyle Hendricks change up to him, that's going off the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And the Pirates, too, they're upcoming, and we got to play them next.
Yeah, the Pirates.
They can end us.
They
can end us. They could bury us. 6 of our next 9 games are against them. I don't feel very confident beating them right now. I hope I eat my words. I really do. I haven't felt this pessimistic about this franchise in a long time. And when they tore it all down, I bought into the plan. They have to earn my trust back. That's all I'm going to say. They have to earn my trust back. Winning 2 or 3 in the Giants doesn't do much for me. You had a great game by Kyle Hendricks, and you squeaked out the first one. It doesn't do much for me.
Winning 2 or 3 against the Giants 2 weeks ago would have made me feel a little better.
Sure, me too.
But after the Padres series, after the Angels series, no, it's you better stack a couple of these.
If you can win the series against the Pirates, hold your own against the Orioles. If you went 4-2 against the Pirates, I would maybe start to believe again. And listen, I'm not saying it's impossible. I want to get that. I'm just saying I'm not betting on it. I am not betting on it. Honestly, do you want to know a true breaking point for me on this season? Do you want to know what moment that was?
Sure.
it was either the middle game or the conclusion. It was the middle game against the Angels when that bases clearing double basically put the game away. And I just said, this ain't it. This just ain't it. And, you know, that Angel series was brutal. Just brutal. They looked dead. They looked defeated. They looked like they had all the life sucked out of them. It's amazing they won that series in San Francisco. Really. You thank Stroman and Hendricks for that.
Yeah. I mean, the games they're winning are games that their starting pitcher pitched so well that they almost could not lose.
Right.
I mean, the finale of the Angels series, Smiley pitched plenty good enough for them to get a win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, was it his best game? No, but it was plenty good to get them a win. And would they scratch out one run?
Yeah.
When
they get down in a game, it looks like they don't care. They just press and they flail away and they go back to the dugout and rinse and repeat. When it's tied or they're ahead, they'll have better approach. But it's like the second they get down, you never feel like they're going to come back.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And no pop in the bat. And, like I could live without the home run if you had got a bunch of guys that could hit solid doubles consistently. Multi-base hits. I could live with that. But they don't have that.
No.
It's just really frustrating. and I honestly don't know how this gets better. I mean, sure, guys could be like, oh, hey, I totally remembered how to hit. I woke up this morning, I had amnesia for the first couple months of the season. And suddenly, magically, I remembered that I know how to hit a baseball.
Well, listen, if you're going to have any sort of shot against the Pirates and the Orioles and the Cardinals over the next few weeks, you're going to need your top hitters to hit like their baseball. You're going to need Ian Happ to hit like last year. You're going to need Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson to get back into a groove, or else this season is dead and buried.
Yeah.
That's the way it gets better, is those guys got to start hitting. And it's not always fair because you have to rely on them only. They were winning early in the season because all those guys, Nico was hitting, Dansby was hitting, Happ was hitting, and that's why you were winning games. If they're not hitting games, you're not going to, if you're not hitting a lot, you're not going to win a lot of games. It's really, really difficult because you don't have much depth beyond that on the major league roster right now.
Yep. And, Matt Mervis may be the future pop, the big bopper on this team at some point. But right now, he needs to go back down to minors and figure some things out.
What worries me, though, is you don't have much. I mean, Trey Mancini's been meh. I don't think he's been as bad as people say, but he hasn't been great. He's just been very meh.
He literally is the definition of meh right now.
Right. Exactly. And it's your two premier positions, first base and third base. If you don't figure those out, you're not winning anything. Where are those going to come from? Where's our next superstar going to come from? Look at Ellie De La Cruz. Do we have a prospect like that? Closest we have is PCA. He ain't ready yet, and I don't think he's quite that. Where's our gem? Our star-studded gem? We don't have one. Jed Hoyer is relying on all this philosophy and this and that. It ain't working, buddy. It is flat not working.
They need to do better in the international pool.
And am I the only one that I'm a little alarmed that you can look 2 or 3 years ago and every prospect we thought was going to be part of the future is now a non-factor at this point. Brennan Davis is just suffered too many injuries. Braylon Marquez is, who knows if he'll ever even pitch again. Remember, those were our 2 top guys a while ago.
I mean, the other one of those that was Miguel Amaya, and we were real down on him based on injuries. And
there might be something there. Yes.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm not all the way there. I'm feeling a whole lot better though, because he was a guy that we thought, oh, injuries, he's done.
At least though, he did perform when he did play. Because ever since the injuries, Brennan Davis has really dipped.
I mean, yeah, I feel terrible because that guy, he reminds me of, this is probably well before your time, but Felix PA.
Oh, I remember Felix PA very well.
Felix PA was the guy. He was going to be the savior of this team when he came up, and he was a 5-tool player, and he was going to be so good. He was untouchable, and every team wanted to trade for him, and the Cubs wouldn't even entertain an offer. And
Yep.
That was Felix PA's career.
Yep.
And I feel like that's where Brennan Davis is going.
And I hate to say it, but I don't know, unless things turn around, it's hard. It's hard to look at it positively right now. And just as the team as a whole, everyone around you is getting better, and they have superstar players, or at least the makings of one. You have a group of good players, even if they're in a slump. Dansby Swanson's a good player. Ian Happ's a good player. Nico Horner's a good player. Stroman's a good player. Steele's a good player. Cody Bellinger, was once a star player, but injuries obviously took a toll. But so far, he's been a good player for you when healthy. But you don't have a Ronald Acuna. You don't have a Shohei Ohtani. You don't have an Aaron Judge. You don't have a Mike Trout.
The thing is if we did, they would be batting like 240 with 3 home runs.
Stop telling the truth. It's making me angry.
I'm just looking at Felix PA's stats. He was the savior of this organization, and his career slash line in a Cubs uniform was 223, 284, 331 with a 615 OPS and 3 home runs.
Remind me, because I thought I remember watching him play a little bit in 2008. Was he still there in 2008, or was it like 2007?
He played 43 games in 2008.
He played that many games in 08.
Yeah, and then he played. He went to the Orioles.
Baltimore. Yeah.
And I saw him probably like 2012. He played in a. I had to go to something in Indianapolis, and right across the street from the convention center was a minor league baseball stadium. And I'm like, I'm going to go see a minor league baseball game. And I was just looking, and I was like, huh, that's Felix PA playing outfield. He was a Cub a couple years ago.
Hey, Felix, I remember you.
Yeah, this team is just really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope they can show some life over the next 2 weeks. And I mean, here's the thing is they're not in the situation where it's either win now or sell everything. I would rather you kind of somewhat get back into it, even if you're not going to contend, because you have the guys you want locked up position-wise for a while, and you do have, farm assets. So it's not like you look at this situation and be like, well, we don't want them to be on the border of selling or buying, because no matter what, they're not going to be buying anything big. We know that. And
They shouldn't be buying anything
no,
unless
and
unless there's a piece of a young player that, is absolutely a guy that they think can be there for years to come and is young. Like,
right.
okay, then you're buying for the future, but don't rent a player.
Right. No, yeah. And they're not going to do that. And also when it comes to selling, looks like they're going to be selling at this point or just not doing much. But if you're not contending, you're at least going to sell a guy or two. But the thing is let's say you're not selling Stroman. Let's take that out of the equation. Who are you selling? Bellinger?
I mean,
you're not going to get a lot of his deadline.
I mean, if you don't have an extension with Stroman and you don't trade him, you're stupid. Like, period. Because he's going to walk for nothing.
Right. I'm just saying, outside of Stroman, let's take him out of the equation for a sec.
I mean, the thing about Bellinger is, are you going to get value for him?
Very little. Even if he plays well.
Yeah, I don't think I would trade him. I don't think, you can't just start trading. There's a time and a place for trading away everybody. And I think you're sort of out of that right now. I mean, if there's guys that are clearly, hey, they're just like, if a bullpen player gets hot, you're like, we're out of it. Let's sell, because you're going to rebuild your bullpen probably. But Bellinger's a guy that you're toying about bringing back.
Right.
Then don't sell him.
Right. No, I agree. I can, yeah.
Wisdom has no value. You're not going to trade Happer or Suzuki, and I don't know what value you're going to get. You're not going to trade Horner or Swanson. Like, I think the Cubs,
you have nothing to sell.
Yeah, I think they just sort of stand pat.
And here's the thing. Here's the worst thing. If you were to sell, what did they have the past few years that they don't have now to sell? Bullpen arms.
Yeah.
Look at those come at good value. Teams need those that are in a postseason race. If Fulmer was pitching lights out, easy. If Boxberger was pitching lights out and not hurt, there you go. There's another one. Boxberger has been hurt and he hasn't been very good this year. Fulmer has not been very good this year. Nobody else. Maybe you sell lighter. I mean,
it's a possibility. And just, what are you getting for him?
Not much. You're not going to sell Alzolay. I think you need to keep him. So you might make a sell move here or there, but not much. Not much. This sucks. They are in, it feels like they're in no man's land with a little bit of hope, with the fact that you have a decent core of guys and hopefully a farm system that you feel good about. You look at other teams bring up their prospects and they come in and just mash and impress. And then, the Cubs bring somebody up and it's like, ugh. I will say, though, I'll give this. If there was one really nice takeaway from the Giants series outside of Kyle Hendricks and Stroman, is that I felt like we saw a better approach from Christopher Morel. So maybe there's some improvement there. So if you get something out of him, then maybe that gives you a little bit more hope. But we're kind of grasping at things at this point.
On the other side of town, things really aren't that much better.
They were for a bit.
They were and they weren't. I mean, you're like, okay, hey, the White Sox won a few games. You're like, okay, nice. But then you looked at the standings and you're like, oh yeah, they're still not playing well. This is still a long way to go. I mean, literally the White Sox are as close to first place as they are to 500.
That division is just a joke. Because they were 7.5 back. They got within 3.5, right? 3.5.
Now they're back to 4.5. So 4.5, and we're at, we're a good clip into the season.
I don't know, man. No one's running away with that thing. But
I mean, we're 40% of the way through the season, and they're still within striking distance, but somebody has to win some games in that division, right? Somebody. It's not the Royals. I mean,
and it's not the Tigers. It's not the Tigers.
Well, the Royals are almost as bad as Oakland.
The Royals should be publicly shamed. That is an embarrassment of a franchise.
And the thing is, I think they're trying. At least at Oakland, you're like, they're not trying. They're literally the Cleveland Indians from Major League.
They swept the Brewers. If you think Vegas are bad for the Cubs, at least it wasn't the worst thing that happened in the NL Central.
But like Oakland is the Indians from Major League.
You see, bunch. Broken down biplane. Taping up the wing.
They've got Billy Bean's picture in there, and they take clothes off of him every win.
Hey, I think I need one of those bags. We don't have any. Are there any pilots?
But yeah, that division is terrible. Let's see. You took a series from the Yankees, and listen, I get that the Yankees are, in injury hell, and they're not fully healthy by any stretch. But you know what? You still beat the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
But then here come the Marlins. And the Marlins. Marlins won today, right? Yeah. So the Marlins take 2 or 3 from you.
Well, not only that, they blew it in the 9th inning both times.
Yeah, and Liam Hendricks is hurt.
Yeah, these last 2 games were a real tough blow for the Sox because Saturday they're up 1-0 in the 9th. Joe Kelly comes in, walk with the bases loaded, and then they break it open, win 5-1. Today you're up 5-1, heading to the 8th. You give up a few runs. You're like, okay, you're still up by 2. Graveman hasn't given up a run in like over a month, and then with 2 outs, 2 on, I think it was De La Cruz hit a ball down the line past Moncada to give the Marlins the lead and eventually the win. Those are 2 just gut punch losses when you had the opportunity to really get to the top. You were there. Because not only did you take the Yankees 2 out of 3, you were on a nice win streak there. You sweep the Tigers, which the Tigers suck. I get it, but you still have to beat them. Then you took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, and then you win the first game against the Marlins. Like, things were kind of looking up for the Sox, and then these 2 losses, you just they make your stomach turn like bad clams.
And what's even worse is the guy who killed you today is Jorge Soler.
He had 2 home runs. He's been on a tear in terms of home runs, man.
He's hitting well this year.
Yeah. He's muscling them out there. Former Cub legend.
When the Cubs signed Soler, what was he, like 16, 17?
Yeah, he was a teenager.
And I saw a picture of him. I was like, this guy, he's a teenage grown man. I was like, this guy's going to be good. And he never became the guy I thought. But to be honest with you, he's had a nice career. I mean, is it anything super special? No, but the home run power has been pretty darn good.
Yeah, he's been hitting some absolute tanks, and even on like pitches he gets jammed on, he's able to muscle them out there. He's pretty strong.
Yeah. But I mean, there are bright spots for the White Sox. Lucas Giolito seems to have be pitching better.
Yeah, he looks great.
Cease returned to his form against the Marlins. In the last game of that series against the Yankees, Garrett Crochet came in and looked aces. He looked great. So there's some.
Michael Kopech looks incredible.
Yeah, there's some bright
spots. A little bit of
spots.
wobbly command with a lot of pitches at times, but he's still striking out a lot of guys and not allowing runs.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that's to be excited about. Lance Lynn is not one of them, but
No.
and the shitty thing though is the White Sox. The reports are that Giolito's gone no matter what, whether they trade him at the trade deadline or not. They're not re-signing him.
So, and this is where it comes down to a lot of things, because it doesn't look like the White Sox are going to fall way back in this division no matter what. Because I don't see anybody in this division running away with it unless somebody gets crazy hot, whether that's the White Sox getting crazy hot and taking over or Cleveland. I mean, the Twins, every time you think the Twins win a few games, they break out, then they like lose 4 in a row, So it's like,
I mean, here's the thing is with this division is, you're not going to be at the bottom because the Royals are just abysmally bad.
And that is like bad clams and bad crab.
Yeah. And so that floor is just completely so low. There's no way they hit that floor.
No way.
And I don't see, I mean, somebody may run into a few wins in a row and play better, but what are the odds that somebody finishes this? What are the odds that the winner of this division has over 90 wins?
Pretty low.
I mean, that is so doable. Like, this is, this is a winnable division. You're bunched up against, there's 4 teams bunched up right there. And the one who's playing the best they're not playing bad baseball, but everybody's playing better than, well, not the Tigers. The Guardians and the White Sox have been playing much better than the Twins, and they're just gaining ground. And I think this is going to end up being a 3-team race with 3 teams that have their shoelaces tied together. And they're just going to keep falling, getting up, and hobbling, and then trip and fall. And eventually one of them's got to win.
I just picture them wearing those massive white New Balance dad shoes, and they have like double, triple tie together, and they're just the white shoes are like stained with mud and grass, and they just keep falling.
And they're just doing the Peter Griffin.
No, you're right. I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's there for the taking, and you're not far off. And as a whole, you have played better. Like, you lost 2 brutal games to the Marlins, but your overall, the way that you've wins versus losses the past week plus, you've won more than you lost. And that starting pitching has been phenomenal. Like you said, with Cease and Giolito and with Michael Kopech. And
the thing is sure, they're playing better, but their next stretch of games is they've got 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Mariners, who are not, the standings aren't that great for them, but I think they're still a very good team. And then 3 against the Rangers. And
yeah, I mean,
that's not a good stretch when you're trying to gain ground.
I do think the Dodgers are beatable. Their pitching has not been very good. If your starting pitching can neutralize some of those bats and you can hit off that pitching, you got a chance. I'm just saying.
You really, what you got to do is you've got to hold your own in those
Right.
9 games, because after that it goes 3 games against Boston, 4 against the Angels, and then 3 against Oakland.
The Rangers is definitely going to be that offense is potent in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, if you can win 2 or 3 against the Dodgers and the Mariners, you feel good going into that Ranger series. Just hoping you can steal one. And if you can do that, you feel really good, because then you've got an easy stretch of games coming. But if you go in and lay an egg against the Dodgers, then it's going to make those next 2 series tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a situation where they're going to have to step up here. And listen, they stepped up at Yankee Stadium. That's not easy, especially when you had smoke fire over your head. They have stepped up when they faced other division teams like in Cleveland. So we've seen them step up and win some notable games lately. So you're just going to have to keep doing that. I mean, here's my whole thing is, to me, they're either going to take over first place or they're going to be in the race come trade deadline. And you're going to have to make a call because you mentioned Lucas Giolito not coming back. And you think about the rest of this team. It feels like this is going to be kind of the last shot with the way this team is built, right? I mean, obviously, Robert is going to be around for a long time, and there might be a few other pieces that are going to be around still.
I don't know how long Tim Anderson is around.
I don't know either. I really don't know. I mean, wasn't he benched today? He didn't even play.
Yeah, Tim Anderson is struggling, and he's been injury prone, and I don't know how much longer he's a White Sox. But here's the thing about the trade deadline is, based on record, if things don't improve record-wise, you're like, oh yeah, this is the record of a team that would sell. But nobody's going to be out of it from this division. So, typically I'm pro, hey, if you don't have any business thinking you can win the whole thing, who cares about squeaking into the playoffs? I changed my tune a little bit now that you have the Miami Heat making it to the finals when they eked into the playoffs. And you're like, okay, well, anything can happen.
Look what the Phillies did last year.
Yeah.
And if you have those top 4 starting pitchers the way they do, you go into the playoffs with that.
Yeah, if they're within like 5 games of first place at the trade deadline, I'm hard pressed to trade Lucas Giolito. And I don't know in this division if they're going to fall that far behind.
I don't think they are. I don't think they are. Obviously they still have to go out and win games, but no, you're right. Again, it would take another April collapse to really drop out. Otherwise, they're not dropping down far. It's really hard for me to see the Twins or Cleveland go on some ridiculous streak. I could be wrong. We could all be wrong. It's just what we think the odds are. Never say never, but that's kind of where I see it too.
Yeah, it just this is a 3-team race, and no team is exceptional, and the White Sox have the best talent. It's really hard pressed for me to believe the White Sox are going to be sellers, and I don't think they're going to be buyers either.
Stand pat.
Yeah, they're going to be a team that stands pat, and honestly, I just don't know, where they could make a major trade. They don't have a farm system to trade from.
Well, and that's the problem too, is if you want to buy big, how are you going to do that?
Yeah, they don't have the capital to be able to buy big. And honestly, I don't know if they would, even if they did, because I don't think that they feel that this is a championship caliber team. And I think they're closer to doing another teardown and rebuild than they are, doing an arms race and building up.
Well, some people may think that, but don't you think the front office would want, knowing how Jerry Reinsdorf in this front office operates, would you honestly be surprised if they tried to go for it by just going for it?
And just running the same team out?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think. But I'm just saying is if somebody put a gun in my head and said, are the White Sox closer to being a rebuilding team or to going out and adding big time player via trade or free agency in the off season to try to bolster and spending money, I'm going to say they're closer to rebuild just because of ownership.
The gun just squirts bad clam sauce.
You've got bad clam juice in the Marty Havlat crock pot, and he's really going.
It's like bubbling and like bursting like a volcano.
My stomach bubbling.
But it's like I was alluding to earlier, kind of saying about this being the last chance, because you talked about Tim Anderson, and I mentioned as well, like or Lucas Giolito, and look at some of the other guys on that team. Isn't this Yasmani Grandal's final year of his contract?
I believe so.
I don't know if he has an option next year, but
so Tim Anderson has one more year of this contract, and it's a club option. Yasmani Grandal.
So he signed 4-year deal,
4 years.
which he's a free agent next year.
Yep, he's a free agent. And
going to be 35.
Yep. So they're not going to run this team out. I mean, the thing is all right. How much of a drop off is Sebi Zavala from 2023 Yasmani Grandal?
Well, Yasmani Grandal is a much better offensive contributor, where I think Sebi Zavala is better at catching. But do you really want Sebi Zavala to be your number one catcher next year?
I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, who else are they going to get?
I mean, I'd have to look at the market. I don't know who's on the free agent market, and I don't think they have any notable catcher prospects. But I mean, your number one prospect right now is Colson Montgomery. If you're talking about trade chips, Colson Montgomery is your number one prospect. He hasn't played at all this year. He's been hurt. So, the big thing you could reach down your farm system right now is Oscar Colas coming back. I mean, would you be willing to trade him if you were really going to try to desperately buy here?
Here are the notable catchers in free agency: Travis d'Arnaud, Mitch Garver, Jan Gomes, well, potentially, Omar Narvaez, Mike Zunino.
Well, if you land one of those guys, you bring Omar Narvaez back. Family reunion, yay.
Man.
How long is Yoan Moncada going to be a White Sox?
Forever.
forever.
This is not going to be a good free agent class.
Well, that's concerning for both teams.
I mean, here are the free agent shortstops after last year. Here are this year's. Potentially Tim Anderson, Elvis Andrus, potentially Javi Baez, Brandon Crawford, Paul DeYoung, Adalberto Mondesi, and Ahmed Rosario.
I think they all just washed up on the beach.
Here's the outfielders: Harrison Bader, Cody Bellinger, Charlie Blackmon, Michael Brantley, Michael Conforto, Adam Duvall, Joey Gallo, Randall Grichuk, Robbie Grossman, Max Kepler, Andrew McCutchen, Jock Peterson, Tommy Pham, AJ Pollock, Jerickson Profar, Hunter Renfroe, Victor Robles, Jorge Soler. It's not a big there's literally, I mean, even the pitching options. Carlos Carrasco's old ass, Mike Clevenger's domestic abuse ass, Johnny Cueto's old ass, Jack Flaherty, Lucas Giolito, Sonny Gray, Zach Greinke's old ass is probably going to retire. Kyle Hendricks, old ass Rich Hill, Clayton Kershaw, Corey Kluber, Lance Lynn, Kenta Maeda, Wade Miley.
Sonny Gray wouldn't be bad for either team, but
Okay, so here we go. Aaron Nola. So the big ticket items are Aaron Nola and Shohei Ohtani. After that, it's just sandwiches. So a long way of saying there's a good chance that Zavala is the starting catcher for the White Sox next year.
Yeah, well, he'd come cheap, right? He's in pre-arb still.
That's the most important word for this ownership.
Mm-hmm.
But
kind of going back to my point is, I just feel like if the White Sox are in the race, and I think they will be, and when I say in the race, I mean within like 6 games, 6 or 7. Beyond 7, I think you're screwed. But if you're within 6 games, you can make a run and have a chance, because I don't trust any of those other teams to really run away with it at this point. Again, a lot can change for better or for worse. But it feels like this is going to be potentially the end for a lot of this. If you're not going to have Giolito back next year, if you might not have Tim Anderson back next year, you don't have Grandal back next year. And, another question I have too is with Eloy Jimenez. What about Eloy Jimenez? Because you have him under control for 3 more years after this year. Because you have one of his contract years this year, then next year, that was part of that extension. And then you have 2 club options in 25 and 26. So you can control how much time he spends with the White Sox through 2026. And listen, he's 26 years old, but he goes on the IL every 10 days. Are you going to trust that going forward? Because when he's been healthy, he's hit this year. He has contributed with the bat. It's just that he's not on the field very much. It's just a question to ask.
I mean, the guy has been snake bitten as far as health.
Yes.
I just don't. I just I find it hard to believe he's going to ever have a season where he's fully healthy.
You know, he's been in the league since 2019. Okay?
Mhm.
So that is essentially, you can call it 4 years if you combined this year so far, since we're only in June, and then add that to the COVID year.
Mhm.
But that, still, you factor in those two things. You've had 2019, 2021, 2022 as full 162 game seasons, add a 60 game season on top of that, and then what we've played so far. And he's played 352 games. And it may seem like a lot to you, but so far this year, he's played 35. Last year, he only played in 84. And in 2021, he played in 55. So you played 162 games in 21 and 22. And he played 84 in 55 games. He's missed a lot of time.
Yeah, a lot. And it's only going to get worse as he gets older.
And it's like some of these, like he had the appendectomy. It's like that's not even anything related to athletics or in game. That is just freak bad luck. And right now he's not on the IL, but he's day to day. But who knows how long that's going to be.
You know what the worst thing regarding the White Sox is right now? And this might seem stupid, but it really annoys me, is the fact that Ozzie Guillen refers to Jake Burger as just cheeseburger.
Whopper, 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 whopper.
It's not even clever. He just is like, cheeseburger. And it drives me crazy. It's just the laziest of nicknames.
He should work at the Billy Goat.
Cheeseburger.
Have you ever seen the SNL sketch from way back when?
Coke, no Pepsi, cheeseburger.
Yes, I'd like 2 sunny side eggs on toast. Cheeseburger? No, I want some eggs. Cheeseburger. No, I don't want a cheeseburger. You have cheeseburger. No, it's too early for a cheeseburger. Cheeseburger?
Man, that was the heyday of SNL.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, I mean, just with the Sox, man, it's like every time you look like you're going to make a run at it, then you lose a couple of bad games, you have some injuries. It's just this never-ending cycle, and you need to break that cycle to have a chance because, listen, right now, the pressure on the Cubs is from the fans and the media because you're a big market team and you can't be going on 3 straight years with selling. But the White Sox are in the middle of a contention window, and that's where they really, really need to, make something of this because you were supposed to be in the middle of a window and you missed the playoffs last year, and there's more pressure than ever to succeed right now. So you got to do it. If you want to have a chance this year, you got to keep winning games. You got to keep taking series, and in the bad division, you're going to have a chance, and you can still win this division. But you can't blow games like today, and the injuries, it's back and forth, a roller coaster. It's like contender not. Don't stay stuck in the middle in no man's land. Either take over first place, win this division, give yourself a chance in the playoffs, use that great pitching that you've had, use the talent that you have, play like the team you're supposed to be, or just don't, and just go back to where you can make a decision. You don't want to be the 2020 Bears. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Let's talk a little Hawks. That's cool with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some things to say.
The ownership and management hurt us, and the Panger is back.
Yes.
I'm really excited about that. They
Fantastic hire.
they made a statement saying that they heard the fans loud and clear that they wanted more consistency in the announcers. And it's not so much we wanted more consistency, we just wanted somebody that didn't suck. And now we have Wiedemann and Troy Murray on the radio and Panger and Vosters on TV. And I wouldn't mind them upgrading from Vosters at some point, but I can live with the Panger coming back to Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, that was great news to hear. And I was really surprised that they were able to make that happen because, listen, over the past 2 years, you had Eddie Olczyk leave and you had Pat Foley retire. And, again,
Quote,
it's
retire.
been, yeah, exactly. But now you're like, oh, shit. Bringing Darren Pang back. Big move.
This is one of those benefits of, we're in a weird era right now of sports because a lot of sports, outside of the NFL, most sports is on regional networks, and a lot of the regional networks are dying, going bankrupt.
Yeah, the Bally Sports thing is an absolute shit show.
Sinclair Media that operates Marquee Network is going bankrupt too, I believe. I don't know how that impacts Marquee, but so the Pang thing, I think, is one of those unsureness of the regional network that he's even available. So it's turning out to be a good thing. Chicago has a regional sports network, but I don't think that one is at risk because
I think NBC is fine.
Yeah. Even so, the viewership of a big city like Chicago is a lot different than a regional sports network in Arizona or, somewhere with it's a much smaller market.
Absolutely.
So we reap the benefits of that and be able to bring in a guy who has really become an exceptional announcer. So yeah, that's great news. I'm really excited, and he'll be able to call the entire career, hopefully, of Connor Bedard.
Yeah, you want him to drop his little Darren Panger things when Connor Bedard does something well. It'll make the booth a lot more exciting, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So, welcome back to him. Started his career here and coming full circle.
Yeah, played goalie, then broadcasted here, then he was with St. Louis for 16 years. He was there a long time.
It was a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another L for the Blues. It was a double win for the Blackhawks because it was a win for us and a loss for them.
They got Chip Carey. We got Darren Panger.
And also the Blackhawks made a signing. They Anastasia, they signed to a 2-year, $8.5 million contract, which myself and a lot of other people raised their eyebrow about the value of that contract. Is he deserving of that money? That amount of money? Absolutely not. But it's a short contract. He's played well for the Blackhawks this year. I think he's a good veteran to put with Connor Bedard, and they still need to hit that floor.
Yeah, exactly. You need to hit that floor, and we talked about it before on this show of needing to hit that floor and possibly taking on bad contracts. And listen, Andres Athanasiou is coming off a 20-goal season, and I think he put up 40 points, so he scored 20 goals, 20 assists.
Yep.
And
2020.
It helps solidify a position on your roster, and he does have that really nice speed. So if he's able to put up similar numbers on a rebuilding team that's building around Connor Bedard you'll easily take it. Easily take it. So I'm fine with the move. I've got no problems with it. And you can afford to overpay to fill out a roster while you're in the middle of a rebuild. Because,
That,
like you said, they were far off from that cap floor.
yeah, if you sign somebody to a long-term deal for way overpay, that's bad. But this 2 years, $4.25 million a year, that's, you can live with that because you're gonna be up against the cap floor next year too. So it's not hurting you. He plays well enough to warrant being back. So it's not like, oh, you're just gonna pay somebody to pay somebody. You're paying somebody, you're like, hey, listen, we guarantee we bring the guy back. We like having him here. And gets us closer to the cap floor, and it guarantees he's here. And it's a 2-year deal. It's not going to hurt our cap situation at all. By the time we start loading up contracts, that contract will be done. So I'm okay with it. I don't like that it sort of sets the market for players of that caliber, but I think everybody recognizes what the whole situation is.
Yeah, and you know what? I kind of hope they treat the same way with Max Domi potentially bringing him back, because I think that would be a wise investment. I really do. Especially with Connor Bedard coming here. So I feel like Kyle Davidson really is doing his due diligence, not only to fill out a roster, but do things that have logic to them with where the Blackhawks are, the position they're in. They know they're not building for a cup year next year. They know that the number one thing is to continue to develop the farm system and Connor Bedard. So building your way up, he understands where the organization is. So you might as well go out and you bring in guys who, they might not make you a cup contender, but they're going to serve a purpose for you in building this team up.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This is going to be, we've seen Kyle Davidson do well tearing down the roster, but honestly I don't want to give too much praise because that's the easy part of anything, because you guarantee where you wind up. It's the building up that's hard. And
we've sure seen that in this city.
Yeah, tearing down is easy because no matter how you do it, you get to the same spot. It's like demolishing a building. You can do it the nice, careful way where you see them hosing things down to keep the dust down, and it's the demolition where they key in the where the explosives go, and it's very controlled. And then you have some Yahoo with just smash into something and it falls over and takes out half the neighbor's house with it. It's, but they wind up with the same thing. There's demolition, but it's the building up that's the hard part. And right. I do see Kyle Davidson, like I see Ryan Poles, where they're both very similar things. They did the teardown, they're starting their rebuilds, and you don't have enough to hang your hat on to feel super confident, but you see enough to go, I like what I see, and I see a plan.
Exactly. There's an end game here. You see what they're doing. He's transparent about it. They know what they seek in terms of their long-term goal, where Jed Hoyer is just kind of putting things together as they go, which, that's a whole other story. But when you see a more transparent plan, like you're seeing with Davidson, and, he has his goals in mind, but he's also very open on how to accomplish those goals, whether that's trading assets in the draft or exploring different options. Like, he's made it clear he's keeping all options open. So he's doing his due diligence on every angle of this plan that he has. I think that's a good thing.
I can't see a scenario though where he trades back with that second first round pick.
I
Because
don't either.
I think there's a lot of good players in that window.
I
He's
don't
either going to
either.
stand pat or he's going to try to move up. And I know this one seems too much to fit to work out, but one that just really makes sense is there's a team that is sitting with the number 11 pick in the Vancouver Canucks. If you look at the NHL team cap space, the team with the worst cap or the lowest amount of cap space, who's actually over the cap currently, is the Vancouver Canucks. They've got a couple of contracts where are the players bad? No, they're not bad, but they're not living up to the contract they signed, and the Canucks need to get out from 1, 2, probably even 3 contracts. If the Blackhawks were to take on, 1 or 2 of those contracts, plus give the number 19 pick, could they move up to number 11?
Maybe.
I mean, that just seems like for the Canucks, you're getting cap space and some cap relief, so you can make different moves, and you're also not falling outside of that range that, there's the elite players, and then there's this range, you're just going to the back end of the range, but a range of players that are really good in this draft. So you're still in that range and you're getting out from those contracts. It seems like a win-win for both teams, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect world, that does sound like one. And, maybe what you can do to make it sweeter is you print out a picture of Connor Bedard, attach it to the deal, and then as soon as the Canucks wrap around and take this deal, you yank it back from a fish line and say no take backsies.
So
just think about it, like a really shitty printed out picture that's like streaks and like just like you could tell the printer like just wasn't working right, and like the paper's like jammed in the way out, and it's like partially ripped, and like the old printer from The Office. But no, I mean, that is something, and again, that's something that Kyle Davidson is probably evaluating right now. I mean, he's looking at every angle here, and you have so many draft picks, you have so many assets to use. That's the exciting part, is the fact that you have all these draft picks in a really deep draft makes those picks 10 times more valuable. Not literally, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got so many draft picks. I think they're going to try to cut or pair them together and try to make a trade to move up, because they've got a whole lot. And I think drafting that many players is, at some point you can't have that many players drafted. I think they're going to have to try to maneuver a little bit.
Yep.
And I don't know if you saw, they had the prospect workouts, almost like the combine, this weekend. And Connor Bedard looked great and everything.
And you know what? Not only did he look great, but have you listened to him speak?
Yeah, he's very personable. Did you see him on during the NHL or the Stanley Cup final broadcast?
I did.
He was cracking jokes, and I was like, dang, this is our dude.
Yeah, I mean, you see, I think, a real leader, someone who's polished, focused, humble. I think he was raised very, very well. You don't see some like jackass kids, some punk. I mean, you see a polished 17-year-old. And listen, you're not going to bring a 17, 18-year-old next year to be the captain of the team, but I do think that there could be a future where he is the captain of the team some years down the road. I mean, Taze was pretty young when he became captain. I'm just
Yeah.
saying he's not going to come right away, but you see captain potential in him just based on his public comments. Like it's more than just liking the player on the ice, but just everything I've seen him say, the way he speaks, what he says. I like it more and more. I'm excited about it more and more. And he's a physical specimen too. You're like, shit, like that guy's going to be able to fly by skaters on the ice. And, I just can't wait to see him on the ice playing out there. You love to picture in a Blackhawks uniform him breaking free of a couple defenders, swiping the puck, and just going on a breakaway where nobody can catch him. Can't wait.
And his best friend is also in this draft. Andrew, I don't know how to pronounce it. Crystal. And he's Connor Bedard's best friend, and he is in the rankings somewhere in that 15 to 25 range. So there's a possibility that the Blackhawks could draft Connor Bedard's best friend in this draft.
That'd be cool.
I mean, really cool for him.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying is DeBrincat did ask for a trade.
Yeah, but doesn't he want to go to the Red Wings?
He doesn't have a say in it though. He doesn't have any sort of clause.
Well, I thought he had a preference. Like,
yeah, he's a preference, but there's nothing. I mean, it's he doesn't have a no movement clause, so he doesn't get a say. He's just like fingers crossed. I mean, it could turn out where he says won't sign an extension with that team
because he is a restricted free agent, correct?
I believe so, but
yeah.
he can be traded to whoever he wants. It's not like
right. I'm just saying, like,
it's not like with Taves and Kane and some of the Blackhawks where they gave them no movement clauses,
right,
or limited no movement clauses. This is he could be traded to anybody, and I think the thinking is that if they try to trade him to somebody he doesn't want to go to, he won't agree to sign an extension. But I think Detroit, and there was a couple of teams, I think it was 4 teams that he's believed to be linked to. But you know what? He could also decide he wants to play with Connor Bedard, the Bedard dog.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't think it's happening.
I don't think so either. I'm just saying that it's that reality is there's a potential here. I mean, there's probably slim, but there is an above 0% that happens.
Yeah, I suppose. I just the tone in your voice, I started to hear a ladle and some meatball sauce.
Well, I know that Patrick Kane is not coming back, so I'm trying to brew up something. Trying to
brew up. You brew meatball sauce. You just have a giant brewer with meatball sauce in it.
And Chelios is out at ESPN. Not sure you saw that.
I didn't see that. I know I didn't.
He is out. I don't know if he did something or if that's just part of the ESPN cost cutting. But he is no longer affiliated with ESPN.
I didn't see that.
Yep. But let's wrap this up with a little Bears. Every time that the Flus speaks, it seems like it's something coming out of his mouth is along the lines of, yeah, we'd like to get one of those free agent edge rushers. We really would. It'd be pretty awesome.
Wink, wink.
And Frank Clark is now gone. He went to Denver. And Leonard Floyd is gone. I believe he went to Buffalo. And Yannick Ngakoue is saying, I mean, at some point he might have to just give it up, but his preference is to sign a multi-year deal with a contender. And honestly, he's the best pass rusher still available, but he's dog doo-doo against the run. And I don't know how much the Flus would be happy about having a guy that can't stop the run.
I don't think the Flus or Pulls would go for that, frankly.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're going to be getting an edge rusher. I was almost positive. I mean, maybe pulls out a trade, but I don't think it's going to be any of the free agents.
And
all of those free agents were just dangling there for a couple of months now, and the Bears didn't entertain any of them.
I really don't get it. I don't get it, and this has me worried.
I mean, even let's say they signed Frank Clark or Leonard Floyd, are they moving the needle for you?
Not really, but it's still an improvement.
It's an improvement, but I don't think it moves the needle enough for me to go, yeah, the Bears just screwed up there. There's still plenty of time for them to swing a trade. And I think that's probably, I said it before, is after the draft when they didn't bring in an edge rusher. It's like, I think they're going to go after a veteran. And I thought it would be free agency, but it very well could be the draft. I mean, trade. And
yeah, sure, could be.
And we might not see it until closer to training camp in July or even closer to preseason. Maybe the Bears were hoping somebody would be a cap casualty, and that didn't occur. But
no, I thought there'd be more cap casualties, but there wasn't.
A long time ago, that June 1st date was a huge day in the NFL, because that was literally the day that the cuts happened for contract purposes.
Yep.
It was June 1st, and you're like, oh man. And now you can cut guys early and just designate them as June 1st.
Right.
And it's because it was part of the collective bargaining agreement, to benefit players, the veteran players, so they had more time to latch onto a team. And so it is not that June 1st day is not nearly as exciting as it used to be.
No, it's not.
So, nothing major really happened. I still think there's potential for a trade. And Yannick is still out there, and he's a good football player. He just doesn't play the run. And
No.
I think that's something that the Bears, I think, if I could be wrong, but if they had to choose between getting to the quarterback or stopping the run, they're going to choose stopping the run.
Based on their philosophy, I would agree. I mean, not only the Ryan Poles philosophy of beating you in the trenches, but one thing about Matt Eberflus in Indianapolis was he had a very effective defense, but his defense wasn't known for recording sacks.
And honestly, they've got a really good secondary. And I think they can get some coverage sacks, just because guys aren't getting open. It's not like the players they have on the edge are nearly, I mean, it's much improved over last year, but last year was just absolutely abysmal.
Right.
You did bring in a free agent edge rusher, just he's not a guy that you're like, oh man,
he's a game changer.
Yeah, this is not somebody that the offensive coordinator from the other teams are game planning against. He's just he's very good against the run, and he was able to put up 7 sacks last year, which is nothing to cough at. I mean, it would have led the Bears, but it's also,
That ain't saying much.
yeah, that was not saying much. So I still think that they could be looking at a trade, but as it stands right now, the free agents are slowly dwindling, and it doesn't look like they're going to go the free agent route.
And I will say this too, is that there was some talk of like Leonard Floyd, but frankly, I didn't think Leonard Floyd was really going to be an option to bring back. I mean, they have a 4-3 defense. He's a 3-4 guy. So I just don't think that it really, and I get it. It would have probably helped, but I think with the scheme, it just, I don't think that was really an option.
I like Leonard Floyd. He's really good against the run. He developed into a really good run defender, and he can rush the passer a little bit. But I don't know if that's who the Bears were looking for. I agree with you.
And the thing with Leonard Floyd and his Bears tenure is that he was never bad here, but when we drafted him,
we traded up into a top 10 pick to get him.
Exactly. And you were looking at him to get to the quarterback, and he didn't do that enough. He made tackles. He was a good player, but he wasn't putting up the pressure on the quarterback that we wanted. And like you said, you traded up to get him. You need to be getting top tier production as a pass rusher to be justifying that.
Right. Let's see what else we have. Frank Clark. I was not surprised. I mean, Ryan Poles was very familiar with him with his time in Kansas City. I just think Poles is really trying to stick to that philosophy of signing ascending players, not players over 30. And Frank Clark, very good football player. He's over 30. And there's a time and a place for edge rushers in their 30s. I won't discount them, but they're situational guys. And I think the Bears are looking for somebody that is more than situational.
Which is fair. I'm not saying he was going to make or break anything, but I would not have minded if they had made that move, but like, I totally get what you're saying. Like, I get it.
Let's see. Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, and Nate Davis returned to practice. And I wasn't upset about any of those. I was a little confused about Jalen Johnson and Nate Davis. We got a little bit of insight into Jalen Johnson. He said that he just doesn't get to spend a lot of time with his daughter during the season, and he would rather be a father than a cornerback during practices that are not mandatory. I can understand that. So I'm okay with that. But I still think there is contract implications to that. I think he is sending a subtle, not so subtle hint that he does want a new contract.
I agree.
Eddie Jackson, he was coming back from injury. I didn't, and plus he's a long-time veteran.
I wasn't really thinking too much about that.
The Nate Davis one was weird. Like, it didn't bother me, but it was weird. Like, you had just signed a contract. You think you would be there, hey, let me learn my teammates and the coaches and get this time in. And he didn't. And, I don't think anybody's too concerned about it. But the thing with the offensive line is it is as much bonding and being a one unit with your teammates as it is individual talent. And you've got to build and put that time in to do that. There's got to be a lot of trust and knowing exactly that the person next to you knows what they're supposed to be doing. If there's a stunt or a twist, and you need to pass off guys, you need to know that you can trust that other player to do what they're supposed to do. And that just comes with time. And that's why, you know, the best offensive lines tend to be the ones that stay healthy. And, you've got to have talented players, but sometimes you can get away with lack of talent if you've got that consistency and that trust. And, you don't get a lot of reps in early on because of the collective bargaining agreement. So it's a little surprising that Davis wasn't there, figuring that he's new to this team and all of these players. Maybe not so much the scheme, but building that rapport.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing with Jalen Johnson is, I get that he wants a contract, but honestly, I think there's some decent talent in this cornerback room that he should probably feel a little worried about getting a contract at all, let alone, the contract he wants.
Especially with the health issues, because he has not been able to stay on the field consistently with them, as good as he's been.
Yeah. And you just back-to-back years under Ryan Poles. Like, you are not a draft pick of Ryan Poles. And back-to-back years, they've spent a second-round pick on a cornerback. So you had Gordon last year and Tyreek Stevenson this year. And from what I'm reading from minicamp, and it's minicamp, it's not training camp yet or even preseason games, Tyreek Stevenson already has several interceptions and is quickly improving. So, in a perfect world, Tyreek Stevenson wins the one outside corner spot. Kyler Gordon is your slot, and Jalen Johnson is healthy and wins the other starting cornerback spot. And you've got a good 3 cornerback system there, but you've got some young guys who really got trial by fire last year because of all the injuries and showed their merit. And I think Jalen Johnson's got to realize, hey, I wasn't a draft pick by this general manager, and there's some good players here, and I'd better be out there and playing hard to get this contract.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, if
And
that
like you said, he's not a pick of Ryan Poles. He was a pick of Ryan Pace, and Ryan Poles hasn't been afraid to part ways with the last regime players.
Yeah, I mean, Roquan Smith should be a lesson for everybody. Like, hey, they may want you back, but they want you back at this dollar amount. And if that's not what you're going to do, they're going to move on.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know Jalen Johnson's trying to be that first, player that gets an extension with Poles, like a real extension. But I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be Cole Kmet that gets it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you look at the rapport that Cole Kmet built with Fields last year.
I mean, there's the 3 that are eligible that are, the top likely ones is Jalen Johnson, Cole Kmet, and Darnell Mooney. And Mooney's injury last year, and the fact that they drafted a Mooney light guy in this draft makes me think that Darnell Mooney is there was a time when I was like, absolutely, you're going to extend him. And now I'm questioning it a little bit. Jalen Johnson, same thing. Thought there was a lock. He's absolutely. And I still think there's a room for both of those players to sign an extension. It's just going to be the Bears are not going to overpay them.
Yeah, exactly.
David Montgomery showed that. Hey, listen, that's fine. You went and got your money, and we're going to go and draft a corner or a running back in the 4th round, and we're going to do well with him. The other good news from minicamp is the absolute awesome rapport that DJ and Justin Fields are building. It's something that we have just absolutely longed for in
Yep.
Chicago, is a true number one wide receiver and a true number one quarterback, and them being here at the same time and gelling.
Yeah, we've been desperate for that. And, that's one of the many reasons why that trade by Ryan Poles with the Panthers was so big. I mean, really, what we were looking for was getting draft picks mainly from that trade. But really, I think the biggest takeaway from this trade is going to be the fact that DJ Moore was thrown in there.
Oh yeah.
If he's your number one wide receiver going forward, I think that right there, that is the biggest asset you get in return. Even though you got multiple first round picks in the return, it's the fact that you got DJ Moore. That was really what made that deal sweet.
Yeah. And he's going to not only be a reliable receiver for Justin Fields, he's going to open up the field for a bunch of other players and elevate their games. It's Chase Claypool is going to be better because of DJ Moore. Cole Kmet is going to be better because of DJ Moore. Darnell Mooney is going to be better. And it's, instead of Darnell Mooney going against the number one corner, he's going to be going up against the third best corner. And that starts to become a mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't game plan for, let's just take away Cole Kmet because everybody else is hurt and we've got garbage cornerbacks that we could have the little sisters of the poor come and cover, and you just take away Cole Kmet. Now it's shoot, we got a game plan for DJ Moore. Cole Kmet is going to get a lot of opportunities.
He is. Yep.
And, I fully recognize that he's not Travis Kelce. Like,
Few
excuse
people
me,
are.
but I think you're going to see some important impacts from Cole Kmet like you do with Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce creates his own separation. Travis Kelce creates everything on his own. He makes the wide receivers better. I think DJ Moore is going to elevate Cole Kmet to be that much better. And so I think you're going to see some huge numbers from Cole Kmet this year.
Hey, I mean, you saw a nice jump last year. He was your leading receiver, I believe, in yards and touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. So that's nice to see. And, the Bears really have given a lot of tools for Justin Fields. You've given him the weapons. You've given him the second year in the same system, and you've added talent and health to the offensive line. The only thing that worries me is the depth on the offensive line. But I'm going to say the depth is an unknown, not a oof, because there's a lot of guys that we just don't know about. Like Alex Leatherwood is last year, he had mono and just never really got back to form.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, mono's no joke.
Yeah, he missed a lot of time, and then he just didn't look right afterwards. Jatir Carter is a guy that we hear good things about at practice, but never really got to play. So I mean, the Bears could have perfectly fine depth on that offensive line. We just don't know. So that's my one big worry. I think the offensive line, will it be a good offensive line? I'm not going to go that far. It's just, I don't think it's going to be a turnstile like it was last year.
Well, that's what I hope, if it could at least be serviceable.
I mean, Braxton Jones there was a lot of good things he did. he just really struggled against bull rushers. And he's talked about how he's worked at getting stronger and building his core. And, he worked with Olin Kreutz on building that core and technique. And, he was, even with the bull rusher issue, he was still a good offensive lineman last year.
Mm-hmm.
Darnell Wright is I think going to be really good. And Whitey Coathair moving back to center.
Whitey coat hair.
I mean, the Bears had a good offensive line when he was there. It was just some snapping issues, but he's a very smart guy. You're going to see good things about him calling the offense. I guess my big concern is, can we keep Tevin Jenkins healthy?
Yeah, that is probably one of my biggest concerns on the entire team.
If he stays healthy, this could actually be a pretty decent line.
Yeah, that's what I hope. I just worry.
I mean,
I just worry about health.
Davis is solid, and Davis on the right side next to Darnell. I mean, you could really open up some holes in the running game there.
Yeah.
And the left side would be your two highest graded offensive linemen last year. So the health worries me.
Yeah. Right there with you.
And the one last thing, I know you talked about it last week, but this is all a big song and dance, right? The Bears are going to build a stadium in Arlington Heights.
Mm-hmm.
They're just
I talked all about that.
They're
in the last
doing the
episode.
dance, they're not moving to Naperville. They're not moving to Northwest Indiana. They're not moving to Rockford.
Rockford Bears.
I mean, the only one that has and again, this is like 1% chance, is an alternate site in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And it would only be if the city was like, hey, listen, we will give you land, or we will, and where it makes it financially feasible for the Bears. But the Bears just spent $200 million on this plot of land. They're building their stadium there. They're going to get, do everything to get the best financial situation they can from it.
Yeah, it's a bargaining chip, it's leverage, and I mean, there's no doubt that I think that the Bears are looking at the tax situation, and it's going to be a tough battle. It's going to be a really tough battle to secure those funds, and the tax value of the property is probably a lot higher than they initially thought, like they said. So yeah, this is not going to be a pretty battle per se, but I would be shocked if the Arlington Heights thing falls through.
I mean, what the Bears have on their side is time. They've got so much time. I mean, they've got
it's not like they have 2 more years and they have to get out.
Yeah, I mean, they theoretically could stay at Soldier Field for another decade.
Yeah.
They've got a contract for another decade. So and that stadium is going to take what, 2 to 3 years to build?
At least.
All right, let's say 3 to 4. So they've got 6 years to negotiate all this crap.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is I think this is going to go a little quicker than we expect, because there's literally a lot of the construction we're used to is, oh, hey, we got to tear stuff down and we got to build it, and there's a, you don't have the open space. There's the open space is there. Like, you're not wasting time, moving one thing to do another thing because of space limitations, because of, you're in the city. This is literally, there's a giant plot of land where, they've got, they could just build, not have to worry about anything. Makes it go a little faster.
Yeah, exactly. I just prepare this to get uglier before it gets prettier. I mean, but drawing the conclusions of, oh, Arlington Heights is going to fall through, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not there yet. I'm not even close to being there.
I mean, it'd be one thing if they, I mean, where they would be smart, I think, is if they could, find somebody that, like, oh, hey, Bears know this person, and that person could say, oh, hey, I'd be willing to buy that plot of land from you in Arlington Heights. Then the Bears would be like, oh yeah, we really could sell this land, make our money back, and move somewhere else. But until there's the threat of them selling that land for at least what they sold or bought it for, then they don't have a ton of leverage.
Yeah, and here's another thing too that I was thinking about with this whole thing is securing funds is difficult because the McCaskies don't have income outside the Bears. This isn't the Ricketts family where they had TD Ameritrade, or like the Wirtz family has their alcohol, whatever that business is, that Wirtz wine alcohol business, or, Reinsdorf is involved. He's got two, major league teams, and he's got a bunch of other business venues. The McCaskies are just the Bears. Like, that's it. They don't have McCaskey Corp selling, frozen meatballs or, juice boxes. They don't have any sort of other income outside the Bears. So this is what makes things a little more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, they're what we call house poor. Somebody that has a really nice house but lives paycheck to paycheck to be able to afford it. And that's
I'm poor. I'm George. I can only afford this Razor scooter, not the electric one. I can only buy the crayon set that only has 16, not 62.
My crayons don't have a sharpener on the box.
I have to use my teeth and gnaw at it. You get used to the taste after a while.
My mom said I can't get Crayola brand. I have to get the store brand.
Store brand crayons.
They don't taste as good.
Once I was able to eat a Crayola crayon, it was a treat.
I was at my friend's house as a child of 17, and I tried my first purple crayon of Crayola, and was it exquisite.
We're making a bit where Ding Dong George goes to his friend's house and eats crayons.
I think that happens. I truly believe that that's reality. Based on no facts, I just believe it. I believe it because it's funny.
Just like you believe in the Tooth Fairy.
Yes. But yeah, they don't have like these massive funds. They make good money from this team, but they're millionaires. They're not billionaires. So they're billionaires because they own the Bears, but liquid, they don't have that kind of money.
You just have the melted liquid crayons.
They're like, where are we going to come up with the money to build the stadium? I could take all the crayons that I ate and pooped out that I've been fishing out of the toilet and melt them back down and make new crayons.
That is the most disgusting thing you have ever said on this podcast.
And that's really saying something, because I've said some gross things.
Yes, you have. Who needs puking stilts when you have what you just said that I'm not even going to repeat?
He's like, I use my own Bears branded filter and net.
Dear God. Sorry, I accidentally melted my crayons in the Marty Havlat crock pot.
Oh, Georgie Porgy. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that, needs to pinch their pennies a little bit to make these grand things happen, and that's eventually going to get done. The NFL wants it. The Bears want it, and honestly, Cook County wants this. Like everybody wants this. It's just doing the dance of figuring out the way that's going to work for everybody.
Right. It's going to and it's like I said, it's not going to always be pretty.
Yeah.
That's the business of sports and real estate.
Yeah, I mean, there's teams out there that are still getting some handouts from city and state governments, and that's really just dwindling because it's a bad deal for taxpayers.
Mhm.
You never get the money that you put into it back, and people are realizing that.
Right.
But there's the reason that it still happens is because, like, the Oakland A's, where they're just like, okay, fine, you're not going to give it to us, we're going to move, and there's
Mhm.
going to be another place that is like, I'll give you the money. Like Vegas has a lot of money from the casinos. Like, well, we'll give you some of that money because we're desperate to keep more things to have here besides gambling. But the thing is the Bears are not going to leave Chicago. Like, the NFL is not going to let Chicago not have an NFL team. Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no chance of them leaving Chicagoland. So
Right.
it's everybody just has to figure it out. And it might get contentious and it might be ugly, but it's gonna get worked out.
Yep. Agreed.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. It's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears!
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down